Hi, I'm Kim from NESSP, and in this video, I'll be walking you through Lesson 4, Investigating Atmospheres. This lesson is in Unit 2, Understanding the Earth and Venus, of our Roads from Earth to Venus companion course. The guiding question for this lesson is, why are Earth and Venus so different now, and what happened in the past to cause these differences? Next up, we'll walk through the 5 E's for this lesson. The 5 E's start with engage, and in this case, students will talk about local temperatures, where they are most comfortable on that temperature scale, and use this as the basis to examine and discuss temperatures on other planets. Before this part of the lesson, you will need to find a climograph, which is just a yearly graph of temperature and precipitation averages for your area, and add it to the slide deck that's linked in Engage. This slide deck is a Google slide deck that is only in view mode. So in order to add your own climograph, you'll either need to make your own copy or download the slide deck to add that data from your local area. This will allow students to make a local connection between temperatures they're familiar with and what people might experience if they ever went to these other planets. In the Explore section, students will plan and carry out an investigation to understand at least one variable that impacts surface temperatures on planets. There is a separate video to help you support your to help support your students as they engage in this practice. This is one of the 8 science and engineering practices, planning and carrying out investigations. And if students have never been asked to do this before, it can be quite tricky. So we want to support you in making sure you're able to provide just enough support for students to be successful without providing too much support, which was the old way of doing investigations, which is where we gave the students all the steps and everything that they had to do, and they just followed it like a recipe. We're trying to get them more involved in the planning of the investigation. The other thing that you'll have to do before this part of the lesson is to consider what materials you can provide and get them ready. There are some materials that will be required, such as plastic bottles, thermometers, and a light source, but beyond that, it's going to be based on what you're able to provide. So there are a lot of other options for materials that are provided in the lesson, keeping in the mind that what we're trying to understand are different variables that affect temperature. In the explain section of the lesson, students will analyze their data from their experiment in order to make a claim about how the variable they chose impacted temperature. In the elaborate section, students will use any evidence that they've gathered from lesson 3 or lesson 4 to make a claim about what happened in the past to make Earth and Venus so different now. Before the lesson, you will want to preview the resources, which are articles and videos that are provided in the lesson, and decide which will work best for your students. Students will then use any piece of evidence that they've gathered in lesson 3 or 4 to support a claim about why Earth and Venus used to be so much more similar and now they are so different. I just want to take a moment to talk about this claim because I know AI and Googling the answer is just such a huge issue. And teachers say, well, how can I keep my students from doing that? My answer is you can't. You can Google this question about why Earth and Venus are so different, or you can get AI to write you a great claim. But what the computer doesn't know is what you've done in class. What are you using as evidence that you did in lesson 3 and lesson 4? That is something that the AI cannot know. And so it's really about how students use what you've done in class to back up their claim. And again, you'll see more information on this in the lesson. In Evaluate, students will document their work from this lesson by meeting the deliverables for MO4. There are 2 deliverables for this mission objective. The first one is about their investigation. We want their description, photos, and data from whatever investigation they planned. And then we want their claim with evidence. And there is a template in the lesson to support that claim with evidence. As an optional extend, students can explore NASA careers related to this work of this lesson, and they will revisit those careers in lesson 7. Just to touch on some standards alignment highlights for this lesson, there are really 2 science and engineering practices from the Next Generation Science Standards: planning and carrying out investigations and engaging in argument from evidence. In the cross-cutting concepts of the next generation science standards, we're really looking at cause and effect here. That's what happens when we control a variable and we see its impact on another variable. We are trying to determine a cause and effect relationship. There are also a lot of NGSS content standards in Earth and Space Sciences around weather and climate. The lesson alignments for grades 3 to 5, middle school, and high school are linked in the lesson. Time estimates and expediting. The full time estimate for this lesson is about 5 hours. A lot of that will depend on the complexity of the experiment that your students are planning and carrying out. So there are some opportunities to shorten this engage portion of the lesson and do less than is fully described. You'll have to check out the lesson plan for some ideas on that. And then during the planning and carrying out the investigation, obviously, the more directive you are, the less time it should take. However, keeping in mind that the science and engineering practice really calls for the students to be taking a leading role in that planning. So check out the lesson for some scaffolding tips on how to do that, as well as that additional video supporting planning and carrying out investigations. You can explore this lesson and mission objective on our website at nessp.org, where you'll find links to all the resources mentioned in this video. Good luck!